Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast. We are really excited to be here tonight, and we have a jam-packed show planned. We have not only a lot of news to talk about, but we have one of our, I think, most popular segments that we do on the show, which is Another Listen. And the album that we've chosen tonight is one of, I think it's safe to say, one of John Lennon's most controversial albums, and perhaps one that's received the most maybe mixed reaction from fans and critics. And as everybody has just shown you, that is Sometime in New York City. So we have got a lot to discuss. I think it's going to be a really interesting debate. So before we get to all that, let me introduce myself and my good friends. I look forward to doing the show with every other Monday. My name is Kit O'Toole. I am the author of Songs We Were Singing, Guided Tours to the Beatles, Lesser Known Tracks, Michael Jackson FAQ, All That's Left to Know About the King of Pop, and co-edited with our good friend Ken Womack, Fandom of the Beatles, the act you've known for all these years. Yeah, those are kind of mouthful titles now that I say them all myself. So you guys are kind of right. All right. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
The next book, just as long as the next book is only like a one title book, you know.
I'll definitely
one word title. One word.
I'll work on that.
Yeah, and a short one.
Beatles. I'll just call the next one Beatles.
No, one syllable.
One syllable.
I. Oh, goodness. He is the co-host of the very popular podcast Two Legs, along with Andy Nichols, where you can find out everything about Paul McCartney. They do a lot of great live broadcasts also on Facebook, on YouTube, doing Ranking the Tracks. They are doing a new series now where their ranking was all of Paul's singles and album tracks.
No, it's our 101 favorite McCartney songs.
Okay, so all songs. Okay.
Yes, all songs.
Yep. So it's which is quite an undertaking, but I know they can do it. So please welcome to the show, Tom Hunyadi. Tom, how's it going?
It's going great, kid. It's glad to be here. It's Monday night, and glad to be hanging out with the two knuckleheads down below. I don't know where you guys are seeing the order.
You're down below on my screen. I don't know.
Yeah, Here
must
I'm
be
on top
different for all of us.
It is, but anyway.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. I think it's different for everybody.
No, Joe, Ken, Kid, it's great to see you guys, and look forward to talking about this album.
Yep, it's going to be a really interesting show. It's going to be a banger. That's right. Absolutely. And he is the host of the equally popular YouTube channel Mean Mr. Mayo.
More.
And more. Yep. What is 11,000 subscribers?
Yeah.
It's a mere bag of shells.
I'm assuming that's Honeymooners reference number one.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
Ding. And and he does all kinds of great videos on there, including his adventures in collecting vinyl, of course, talking about all things Beatles, and his great show Fab Gab that he co-hosts with Matthew Street. I think we've all been on there at some point, and I'm sure we'll be making return appearances in the very near future. Yeah. It's a lot of fun to be on it. So Joe Mayo. Joe, how's it going?
Hey, hello, kid. Hello, how you doing there, everybody? Tom, Ken, and everybody out there in YouTube, Facebook land.
Well, this will be on YouTube soon.
It will be on YouTube. First, I thought it was an error. Then I thought, well, ultimately, it's not an error.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Absolutely. And last but definitely not least, really a mainstay of the Beatles community. He has, my God, and also one of the busiest men in the Beatles community. He is the longtime host of the syndicated show Every Little Thing. How many stations is it on now?
It's
Ken?
50.
50.
Yeah.
Yep, 50 stations. And he, of course, is the co-host of the long-running podcast, Things We Said Today. And he also has his own YouTube channel where he has interviewed everybody from authors to musicians to YouTubers, you name it. And it's always a pleasure to be on his show. He's one of the great interviewers. So,
Thank you.
Please welcome Ken Michaels. Ken, how are you doing?
Hi. And hey. I have a feeling you guys are going to be the people that'll be on my YouTube channel the most.
Hey, my pleasure.
Hey.
Absolutely. Always love being on there. So once again, welcome to all of you. We are really looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say tonight about sometime in New York City. But of course, as always, we have to share the news first. And Ken, I don't think much happened this week. I don't think.
All right.
So, but what have you got for us?
And all these years, people have said to me, there's not much going on with
Yeah.
the Beatles, and every week, the news is, as you know, several minutes, but this is what I could come up with, and even news at the last minute. Ringo Starr, hopefully made a new video for his song, Let's Change the World. And the video features Ringo along with a bunch of young people dancing around the area where his peace sculpture is in Beverly Hills, singing this song that has a positive message, while at the same time the video is mixed with many problems around the world, like social unrest and wildfires. The goal of the video is to motivate us to band together and improve our world. And Steve Lukather appears briefly, playing a great guitar solo. Lukather and fellow Toto member Joseph Williams both wrote the song. The video was a collaboration with Kids in the Spotlight. This is a nonprofit organization that provides a platform for foster youth to tell their stories through film. And Ringo was quoted as saying, "I wanted to make this video with kids because they are our future, and this is for them. They deserve clean water and fresh air. I believe we should leave this planet in better shape than we found it for our kids. And right now, we are not doing that. Half the world is on fire, and the other half is underwater. We have got to change, and I believe we can. Peace and love, Ringo." Also, Ringo was involved in Why Hunger's new campaign. Have you seen this? For something which is called, get ready, Drum Together. Not come together, but drum together.
Right.
Ringo is one of more than 100 drummers enlisted for a drum-focused version of the Beatle classic Come Together. Ringo is joined by Jim Keltner, Steve Gadd, Alan White, Cindy Blackman Santana, Chad Smith, Stuart Copeland, Kenny Aronoff, Liberty DeVito, Max Weinberg, Simon Kirk, and modern drummers Billy Amendola, among many others. It's described as the greatest collection of drummers ever performing on one song. A new video was made for this over 10-minute version of Come Together. And Why Hunger is an organization started in 1975 by the late Harry Chapin and radio DJ Bill Ayers to change systems, policies, and institutions that perpetuate hunger and poverty in our world. Ringo is quoted here. He says, "We all can agree that no kid should be hungry and everyone should have access to nutritious food. This is a great cause that I've supported in the past and a great track, one of my favorite Beatles songs. So when Jim Keltner asked me to join all these other drummers, I was happy to do so. Peace and love." So evidently Jim Keltner was the catalyst in all this. With 90 cents of every dollar raised going directly to programmatic work, funds from the Drum Together campaign will fuel transformative community-led solutions across the US and around the globe that advance the human right to nutritious food for all. Why Hunger's Drum Together is made possible with the generous support from Sony and Apple Corps. To learn more about the organization, you can visit whyhunger.org. Check out the video on YouTube, which offers a button for you to click to make a donation for this cause. Got to see it. It's really cool. Very jazzy version And it goes on, like I said, for over 10 minutes, drummed together. Now, to further this Ringo Starr PSA, a nice gesture on the part of Ringo was a good luck video message he sent to Melanie C. before her latest appearance on Dancing with the Stars. Melanie, who was formerly Sporty Spice in the Spice Girls, actually comes from Liverpool. Ringo's message said, "I just wanted to say best of luck tonight, and we are both from Liverpool. It doesn't matter where we live. That is where we were both from. So I send you peace and love and all the best." Melanie was visibly shocked by Ringo's message and commented, "This whole experience is surreal enough. And then one of the Beatles is wishing us luck. What is going on?" But really, just so nice of Ringo to do that. Obviously, 2 days ago marked what would have been John Lennon's 81st birthday. Yoko Ono posted, "Happy birthday, John. Happy birthday, Sean. I love you." Paul McCartney posted the words, "Happy birthday thoughts for John Lennon." And yes, it was also Sean Lennon's birthday, Sean turning 46, if you can believe that. Julian Lennon tweeted, "Happy birdie to my one and only brother." Paul McCartney and his wife Nancy also celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary on October 9th. Paul posted the words, "10 beautiful years together. Happy anniversary to my lovely wife." And Giles Martin, son of George, his birthday is also October 9th. He turned 52.
What is it with that day?
I don't know. Busy day. John Entwistle's birthday.
Yoko was on tweeting fire on his birthday. I don't know if you saw some of her tweets, but some interesting comments from Yoko a couple days ago.
Okay. Also on John's birthday, the 3rd annual Dear John virtual charity concert was held at Veeps.com at 3 p.m. Eastern. The star-studded event, organized by the UK rock band Blurred Vision, featured performances from Peter Frampton, ex-Guns N' Roses drummer Matt Sorum. The Quarrymen were due to appear. Earl Slick, actors Matt Lucas and Martin Freeman, along with many others. This show also raises money for the UK charity War Child, which seeks to help children affected by war around the world. Tickets for the concert were made available and still are at blurredvision.veeps.com. And it will remain available to watch on demand until October 17th. To raise additional money for War Child, a new song called Dear John that Blurred Vision recorded with Frampton and Molly Marriott, who is the daughter of late Small Faces Humble Pie frontman Steve Marriott, has been released, and it's now available digitally and via streaming at openeyesrecords.com. You can also check out a music video for the tune at Blurred Vision's official YouTube channel. I did watch this. It's a really nice tribute to John. It is not the same song that John wrote called Dear John, which appeared on the John Lennon anthology, one of John's last compositions. And Peter Frampton really wails at the end of this recording. Speaking of John, a few weeks ago, I mentioned that in celebration of the International Day of Peace, the United Nations released a series of stamps commemorating the 50th anniversary of John and Yoko's Imagine. If you would like to purchase the stamps in its different configurations, there's 3 different photo portraits of John. You can go to unstamps.org/shop/John-Lennon. Thanks to Bob Tavares for that link.
Only 3 different kinds? Only 3 variations, huh?
Yeah, as far as I know. There's also some kind of souvenir issue that features the lyrics of Imagine with
cool.
John's signature as well.
Okay.
All right. 2 big releases are happening this week. Shouldn't be a surprise to any of us. Tomorrow, the Get Back book comes out. Friday, the Let It Be box set. I just have a sneaking suspicion our next show just might be about Let It Be.
Could be.
And 2 major passings to take note of. Believe it or not, Lizzie Bravo has died from heart complications. She was one of 2 teenage girls who were Apple Scruffs. who waited outside EMI studios to possibly get a glimpse of their heroes. One such day in February of 1968, she and another teenage fan, Gayleen Pease, were asked by Paul McCartney to come inside and sing on the Beatles recording of Across the Universe. And that recording ended up appearing on the charity album, No One's Gonna Change Our World, for the World Wildlife Fund, released in December of 1969, later appearing on Past Masters Volume 2. Lizzie herself came from Brazil, and she took a number of photos of the Beatles coming and going from EMI Studios. She also put out a book based on her diaries and photos called Do Rio at Abbey Road. Now, according to the Facebook page for Robert Rodriguez, he said that the book was published in Portuguese and she promised an English language version, which was finished recently. Ironically, the other girl who sang on Across the Universe, Gayleen Pease, also passed away. And this was in July of pancreatic cancer. So sadly, both those girls are now gone. I didn't even know about Gayleen Pease passing away. It's only because of Lizzie Bravo's passing that we learned about her as well.
That's how I found out too. Yeah.
And I just want to add that because Lizzie and I corresponded a bit on Facebook, and she sometimes would tune in when I was doing my monthly shows, and not only was she incredible for her role in Beatles history, but she is an incredibly nice, warm person, and just going to be greatly missed. I was just shocked when I heard the news, and what a loss.
Definitely. Everything I've ever heard about her were just, very positive words. Just a very warm, loving person. Also, it's hard for me to believe that Ronnie Ashton, who was the wife of Billy J. Kramer, died last week from a heart attack. And I've known Billy and Ronnie since, the 80s. They have been great friends to me, always talking about Billy's musical plans. They were both interested in my Beatles radio shows. Ronnie was every bit the fan who loved Billy's music, loved 60s music and going to concerts, and actually met Billy at one of his shows. She was as supportive of Billy as anyone could be, advising him on how to handle his career. And it's hard for me to imagine Billy's life without her. Billy and Ronnie had a home on Long Island, and Billy actually moved there to be with Ronnie. She will be sorely missed by everyone who knew her and by Billy's fans. And there you go. Two shockers right there.
Yeah, that's for sure.
In the past week. Okay. I didn't mention the interview with McCartney. Should I talk about it at all?
Sure.
Oh,
sure.
Okay. you don't seem too thrilled about it. We don't have.
Was there an interview with McCartney?
Yeah. There's a new article from The Guardian that has excerpts of a new interview that Paul McCartney has given to the BBC Radio 4's new interview series, This Cultural Life. And in it, Paul says, regarding the Beatle breakup, I didn't instigate the split. That was our Johnny. Paul says he wanted the group to go on, even though after 8 years together, they were still creating some, quote, pretty good stuff. Paul said, this was my band, this was my job, this was my life, so I wanted it to continue. The point of the breakup, he says, was John was making a new life with Yoko. John had always wanted to sort of break loose from society because, he was brought up by his Aunt Mimi, who was quite repressive, so he was always looking to break loose. And this interview will air on October the 23rd. And the next day, BBC Sounds will be airing Paul reading from his new book, The Lyrics. Okay, that's all the news that I do have. Anybody want to comment on Paul's remarks?
I'm all commented out.
Okay. Why don't we just say go to your YouTube channel?
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
I did 2 videos on it on my YouTube channel.
Did you? Wow.
I mean, just a couple interesting choice of words. I mean, I don't instigate. I mean, is that maybe the best word to use for that? I don't know, but it was fine. I mean, again, there's nothing that we didn't really already know from these comments. So I don't know why some people may be shocked or offended by some of
Well,
these
it's
comments.
because that's where we're going to start at 50. I mean, it's 50
Right.
years later. We know all this and everything, but because Let It Be and Get Back is out, it's kind of headline worthy. I guess the Guardian figures it anyway. I mean,
Right.
Paul was probably just asked in the BBC interview and responded. But of course, Paul was the one who was most into wanting the Beatles to continue, obviously at the time. But I mean, now it's like, oh, I just get a feel like it wasn't me. He wants to wash his hands. It wasn't me. I wasn't the bad guy here. I wanted to continue. But at the time in 1970, I think he was pretty happy to get out of it too. Even though he would have liked it to continue, I think at the end he was like, let's be done with it and move on. So
Well,
Uh,
to use a word that I've overused in this show, it's complicated.
it's very
Dealing
complicated.
with four very different people who have their own perspective, and at the time they were going through their lives and had so many things going on. I mean, Ringo, during the Let It Be sessions, he was about to get ready to film The Magic Christian. He was looking forward. He was starting a new life as an actor. In addition to doing all the music and everything. I mean, their heads were at different places at different times. And there's so many studies that are being done now, and they're all fascinating because these are four fascinating people. But, you can't pinpoint, one particular reason and what one Beatle said on one particular day. You just have to study it all if you care enough to study extensively about everything. But, it is very complicated and it's
And of course,
fascinating.
yeah.
we don't know how John would have felt 50 years after the fact, if he would have mellowed a little bit towards it and said,
Right.
"Gee, I really think they should have continued."
But
And
does that mean that
every
Paul shouldn't then talk about it anymore because John's
No,
not around
if you want to make a
anymore?
whole show about this, I'm game,
Yeah.
man. Let's go there. We'll go there. Okay.
Yeah.
You wanna go-
Yeah.
But
Why
another
not?
thing I forgot to mention, it's very petty, I think, of Paul to get out there and make sure the world knows, hey, look, it wasn't me. Don't be mad at me, kind of thing. I didn't do it. It was John. At this point, that's one thing that bothered. Whether it was true or not, even though he said in the Life magazine article in November of '69, the Beatles are done. Or whatever. It's the Beatle thing is over. He said it then. Uh, but what I wanted to know is I forgot what I was making my video. That tape that went around for Ringo, where they were
Right.
discussing maybe continuing. When was
Mhm.
when was that recorded?
That
That
was
was-
September of
It
'69.
was
actually.
after, like, wasn't it like a week or two after the initial "I want a divorce"
Yeah,
meeting?
okay, that's what I'm saying. So then
No, it
I,
was
I didn't even
before
think,
that.
It was divorce. Okay, it was
No,
before.
no.
Okay.
The
I hope
idea
it
to
was
make
after.
another album,
Okay.
with, John having four songs, Paul four, George
Right.
four, and Ringo
Right.
two. That was like a week before.
Okay.
And then John did the Live Peace in Toronto show, and then he came back
Oh, okay.
and he said that he wanted to leave the band.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping
Jeremy,
it was after.
Right.
Jeremy says
No.
September 10th, 1969.
There you
Okay,
go.
Oh,
there
okay.
you go.
Good.
Oh,
Yep.
Thank
and
you, Jeremy.
Okay,
Yep.
and the 20th was when John blurted out that he wants a divorce and all that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Because I was thinking, what's interesting about that is that ironically, John seems like he's the one that thinks the Beatles could work together a lot and go on and maybe do more in that tape, which is
But that's one day.
Right.
Yeah.
What John could say the next day could be something completely different.
Oh, sure.
And
But
there's go ahead, Kit.
oh no, I was just going to say, just also wanted to mention that just today there was a New Yorker article profile of Paul that just came out. Worth a read. There isn't a lot of new information in it, but there are a few little tidbits that are interesting where Paul sort of talks about his future plans, and there's some interesting things in there. I don't know if I should spoil them, but you might want to go read them. Read the article first, but it's definitely worth a read. It's long, and as I said, the majority of it, we all know, but it's definitely worth a look. So sorry, I just wanted to get that in there before we move on to other stuff. But yeah, I mean, as far as the article about the interview goes, I'm curious to hear the whole interview to see.
Yeah, that's what we really need to hear. And
Yeah,
then
we need to hear it in context.
Drink it all in
True.
context and talk
Yeah,
about it.
absolutely.
Hmm.
So, well, yep, there was a lot to lot to drink in these past couple weeks, and it's just going to get even crazier the next couple of weeks. That's
You
for
know it.
sure. So
Mhm.
absolutely. So thank you, Ken, as always.
Sure.
You are always the man with the news, and always gather all this stuff. I don't know how you do it. Keep up with everything. It just comes fast and furiously. So, well, now we come to our main topic, which, as we said, another listen. We're going to take another look at Sometime in New York City. This was at a very interesting point in John and Yoko's career. As you know, they moved to New York, and John, as we all know, really loved living in New York. He loved being able to be a bit more anonymous. They had moved to Greenwich Village and had really gotten politically active, and had, kind of gotten in with, kind of a far left group of activists, and, wanted to express this new life they had in their music. And they got together with with a local and kind of another kind of politically active band called Elephant's Memory. Shout out to Gary Van Syak, great guy, friend of many of us here, great bassist in the band. And they recorded this album, which was John's most overtly political statement. And quite a change from Imagine, quite a change. And it was, and of course, we can throw in during this turbulent time, there were also, the beginning of the issues with John's fight to, get his visa. It was, suffice it to say, it was kind of a turbulent time, but I think it was also kind of an exciting time for John, because he was, really getting fully politically active in American politics. Because remember, when he was a Beatle, for much of the time, he wasn't allowed to speak about politics. So this was his chance, and he took it. So we're going to talk about this because when this came out, to say this didn't go over well is putting it mildly. It sold poorly. Critics just savaged it. And fans were very split on it. So it's almost 50 years later. And we're going to talk about how has it aged? Did it deserve that initial critique? Before we talk about this, just a couple of things. First of all, we've decided for the first song, we are not going to say the N-word because we're afraid that we could get kicked off YouTube. So we have decided, it's of course a word that has great emotional meaning and everything. So we've just decided to just use the N-word. Secondly, we are talking about this album mainly in terms as a work of art, and both lyrically, musically. So we're not going to get into political arguments, and a number of the political issues on this are kind of outdated anyway. So I just want to make that clear. This is not a political debate. This is about the art. This is about the music. This is about where it fits in with John's catalog. So, okay. All right. All right. So let's get into it. So let me throw this to Ken, because Ken, this is, you were there when this came out. So as I mentioned, Imagine was his previous release. And then this comes out. What was your reaction when you first heard this?
Well, first of all, when this album came out, I was almost 13 years old. And I gotta tell you, for most of my childhood and early adult life, I was not politically aware of most of what was going on in the world at all. And, I'm ashamed to say, I was very ignorant about it. I didn't know about any of these people. I didn't know who Angela Davis was. I didn't know who John Sinclair was, and so I wasn't disappointed with this record, but I wasn't prepared for all political, an entire album of all political songs. Yes, we have Give Peace a Chance. Yes, we have Power to the People. And it's pretty easy. I think all of us would agree we all want peace in the world.
Sure.
John was above all a peacenik. But to write about all these different events in Attica State Prison, the riot there, I didn't really know what was going on. So it was pretty much above my head at the time. But I just listened to it like I listen to a lot of music, which is, do I like the melody? Do I like the playing? Do I like John's voice? The musical part of it all, not necessarily the message as much. And from that standpoint, I've always loved the music because John, to me, is one of our greatest melodic writers. That's never changed. His voice has always been great. And, I've always loved John's lyrics. And I've gone through, and I've said this before, there are plenty of songs that I'll sing along to and not really pay attention to what the lyrics are, just because I love the song. And so I can sing along to some of these songs and not really fully understand what's going on or what John was writing about. But certainly in terms of, the melodies, how the songs went, and also getting used to the fact that this was a John and Yoko album. This wasn't an all John Lennon album. And that was a big change for me, where you're having something close to what they did with Double Fantasy. Although really and truly, when you listen to Sometime in New York City, there's only like 3 songs that are truly all Yoko. There's some collaborations on there, but it became, very much, a married couple presenting themselves as a married couple, espousing their views politically. And over the years, I found that to be really fascinating. But initially, as a 13-year-old, the politics didn't matter at all to me. It's more, when I put the music on, do I like it? And I've always loved all of John's stuff. I like most of Yoko's stuff on this album. Some of it sounds so much better to me now than ever before. So initially, I wasn't disappointed, but, I wasn't this politically active kid at the time. And so I didn't fully understand what the songs were about. Eventually later on, I did. But that was my initial reaction at the time. But still, like I said, with me, it's a very visceral thing with music. Do I enjoy it simply by listening to it? Can I sing along with it? Do I like the melodies? And John's always had one of the greatest voices ever. So in that regard, it was not a disappointment for me. But it was a big change because of the subject matter and the fact that really Yoko shared with John on this.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was a pretty equal partnership. And when you mention his voice, I mean, that is one thing that, as I listened to this again in preparation for our show, yeah, John's voice sounded great on this. I mean, he really is, his voice was, in terrific shape in this still. I mean, he was in his prime in that sense. Joe, now I don't know how old you were when this came out. Were you?
Well, I was 10, but I at that point I wasn't into the solo Beatles, and I didn't even really get heavily into the Beatles until around 75, 76.
Okay, so
and the solo Beatles came along around 77.
Yeah.
So I rediscovered it later, so to speak. I mean, I didn't have any note about it when it was new.
Yeah. So when you did first listen to this, what was your initial reaction?
By that time I was a teenager and a big John Lennon fan at the time, wishing that he would come out and make some more music when he was in retirement. And I would gradually listen to all his albums. And I think that whether you like an album or not, if you're fair, there has to be something, as I say, if you're listing your most favorite to least favorite, or worst if you think it's terrible. Something's got to be near the bottom. For me, I thought Sometime in New York City was pretty weak. But again, Ken was saying, I mean, politics, I didn't know anything about politics. And I don't think, for me personally, I mean, at that age, 10, 13, 15, whatever you want to say, I don't see any any need for an interest in it. Everybody's different, though. I know there are a lot of young people that are into politics. For me, I think, at least get to be like 18, 20 years old before you really know what's going on. But anyway, musically, though, there were things that I liked. Like Ken was saying, I listen for musically. What does it sound like? How do I like it overall? I can enjoy a song when I don't know what they're singing about, or when I may not
Mhm.
agree with what they're singing about.
Right.
I think sometimes when you agree or like the lyrics, that only enhances it. I mean, you can love music just for the music. Lyrics secondary or not important, but if the lyrics also come together, that's even better. But yeah, so what my feeling on the album was that it would be the least at the time when I first heard it of his albums. And I had to put it on the bottom if I was going to rank them along the other ones. And as the years have gone on, I have a very different opinion of that, which we'll hopefully get to as the show progresses.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, that's the thing when you're younger, particularly when you're like, as you said, 15 or so. Yeah, I mean, you're
Yeah, about
not that
15.
heavily into politics yet. That's
Yeah.
that's for sure. Now, Tom, you're kind of like me
Right.
that you probably came upon this album long after
Long
it
after.
was released. Because yeah, I mean, in my
Right.
case, I was a baby, so
Right.
I
Yeah.
wasn't really
Yeah.
listening to this.
Exactly.
So Tom, what about you? When did you first come upon sometime in New York City, and
Well,
what was your
yeah.
initial reaction?
Well, in the second half of the 80s is when I started, actually getting some solo Beatles stuff. And one of the first things I got was Shaved Fish. And obviously, one of the songs from this album is on there. And then I think it was in 91 or 92, I ended up getting the that John Lennon 4 CD box set when that came out. And then, a couple more songs were on there. I think like New York City, and I think John Sinclair was probably on that box set as well. So kind of like it wasn't all at once. So it was just kind of like a song here, a song here, and then finally, then when the reissue came out in 2005, that's when I actually heard it, the whole thing complete for the first time. So but then again, like you guys, I mean, the subject from older relatives, I had known that it was a politically charged album, and that not really being that interesting to me at that time, it didn't make me run out and want to listen to it. I mean, I'm actually not surprised that there's a whole album of politically charged songs. I mean, after what we get, after getting Give Peace a Chance, Power to the People, and Christmas, War is Over if you want it, all that stuff leading to this, it's actually not surprising that we got an album of all politically charged songs. But for me, listening to it for the first time, there's some things that on here that I didn't know Angela Davis, just like, Ken, John Sinclair, but then when you start, liking a certain song a little bit more, you want to learn about it a little bit more. At the time, I kind of like John, the song John Sinclair. So, I learned a little bit more about him. You learn a little bit more about, Attica State, especially being a fan of the movie Dog Day Afternoon, what she's doing, Attica as well. So, you kind of like put two and two together. I was like, oh, well, this Attica thing must have been a big deal, So, and that's the thing, it's just like, you listen to it first, and you're kind of like confused maybe, but yeah, I mean, like to your point though, Ken, is you listen to John, his vocals, the lyrics, do they relate to you? The music, because sometimes that's more important to me than the lyrics are. But it was a rough go at first. It did take a little while to drink this all in, and plus, I can see how this album could alienate a fan base of John's. And I mean, I'm sure there's some people that don't agree with probably any of the songs on here, or what he's singing for or singing about. So I can see the difficulties in that, and then why it didn't sell very well. But yeah, but looking back to it now, I'm really not surprised that we find that he did an album like this, whether or not he may have been misled or, took some wrong advice or just, maybe, but you know what, they cared about these issues. And that's what you also got to consider as well, is that, they took the time to learn about these issues and write about these issues and, put forth the effort to, to build an album around them. So I don't blame them for that either.
Now's a good time for me to interject. I was going to say, the controversial issues, I think they're very brave for doing it. They took a real risk by doing that and alienating a lot of people. I think they meant well, for sure, but at the same time were naive in certain ways, But I like the risk, I like going from Imagine to this and for John, and stuff like that. And sometimes I think you have to do that. I mean, in art, it's not just all about just give them more of the same, or that's fine too. But or whatever, it's going to sell big, I want to make a statement, and arguably a lot of this stuff is like we said, dated in the sense that it's not topics of today anymore. But
some are, some aren't.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's I think that's a good point. But yeah, I mean, this definitely took courage to do, and I mean, he had to have known that this could alienate some of his fan base, and clearly he didn't care. I mean, he really didn't. And Tom, you brought up a good point, because this has to do with my initial reaction that, when you hear the album just sort of blind, you don't really know the whole context around it. And you don't know all of the figures that are mentioned in the background, and also the kind, the story of like the scene that John and Yoko were hanging out in at the time, and even for me, when I first heard it, and I even heard the live stuff and the stuff with Frank Zappa, I was kind of clueless as to like what Frank Zappa was all about at that point. I mean, I vaguely knew who he was, but I mean, but it was just kind of a, huh? What is this? And then of course, now, I mean, when I listen to it now, I'm not a huge fan, I will admit, but I get it. I mean, the collaboration makes sense. I mean, it does. But back then, when I first heard it was probably around the same time as you, Tom. It was a friend of mine who was a huge John Lennon fan, and I was just getting a bit more into John's catalog at the time, and I think he like taped a copy of this album for me, and he's like, "You've got to check this out. It's really different." And I just was just like, "What is this? This isn't Imagine. What is this?" I mean, it's jarring. I mean, it really is. And so, yeah, my initial reaction, I was just confused. I mean, I probably liked New York City. That was probably the most accessible track on the album, but the rest of it, I just did not get it. And but when you learn about it in context, then it makes more sense.
It makes more sense, absolutely. And and besides the fact, I also give John credit for having this partnership with Yoko. I mean, because I think that was also brave of John to include her on this album as well. An album of songs, not just the experimental stuff that they did in the past. And I give him credit for sticking up for her beliefs, and then and he just became more aware of these situations and wanted to be a better person himself. And I applaud him for taking those chances, absolutely. But the thing is though too is, and when you listen to this album, because the only other time you would hear Yoko actually sing in a regular voice was on Bungalow Bill, so in all those other times you just heard her doing her wailing bit, so it was kind of like a little bit of a shock to hear her actually sing at first, which I was actually really impressed. Yeah, songs were good.
Commercial too,
right?
Songs that were commercially accessible.
Absolutely. But before we get to the different songs on the album, let's just talk a little bit about Elephant's Memory. This was really, I mean, they were a known local band. I mean, this was not, they weren't famous musicians, and certainly John at this point could have picked out anyone he wanted. I mean, Jim Keltner was involved in the album. I know that toward the end. But what do you think Elephant's Memories effect was on the record? I mean, do you think they added anything in particular, or what did you think of them as as his backing band? Joe, and we start with you. I saw you nodding. So what
I'm
do you
thinking
think?
about it. I'm prepared to say that because I think from what I've experienced in my fandom, a lot of people seem to knock Elephant's Memory. Oh, they're not, the most professional band. They're not the most seasoned band, whatnot. I actually like them on the record. I love the sound of them on the record. I love everything I hear musically, instrumentally, musicianship on the record. And in fact, I bought not too long ago, maybe a year, a little less. I bought one of the albums of Elephant's Memory, and I loved it. And I forget what the title was on it. It had a gray cover, and I think there is an elephant on it. I think John and Yoko produced it.
Oh, it was the Apple
there
release.
was the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was only one album they made on Apple.
Oh,
and
there's only
that was
one?
it.
I thought I'd seen other ones with them. Maybe other
Well,
labels?
Yeah, on different labels. They've been around
Yeah.
since like the late 60s. And they
And
also,
I liked it.
yeah, they contribute a couple songs on the Midnight Cowboy soundtrack.
Soundtrack.
Oh,
Well,
that I did not know.
yeah.
Okay.
So I really enjoy them on the record. I think they add something to the record. And if I'm to be fair, maybe not so much live. That's what's when I mean going by the 1-to-1 show, I'm a little it leaves me a little disappointed unless we get the nighttime performance, which hopefully we'll get maybe.
Yeah.
But a little lacking there perhaps. But on the record, no issues whatsoever. I like this sound.
Yep. And by the way, I see Eva Van Syak just thumbs up. Hi, Eva.
Speaking of.
Hey, yep.
Let's have a little bass there.
Right.
Yep, that's right.
Come on,
Yep.
Gary, a little bass.
Great, Gary's bass. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Ken, what about
rock
you?
and roll there? Yeah. By the way, Elephant's Memory, they were not chart toppers by any means, but they had quite a fan base in New York, in Greenwich Village, and they played, the biggest clubs like the Bitter End there, Max's Kansas City. A lot of people wanted to jam with them. In fact, Gary was nice enough. I've interviewed him several times, but on my YouTube channel, I did a 3-part interview, and anything you ever wanted to know about Elephant's Memory is really there. And we should have him on our show. I'm sure he'd love to be on our show as well. But they're really a cooking band, and they did a lot of session work. They're very accomplished musicians. I was always under the impression that because John was looking for a certain sound, a certain raw sound, like a garage band type feel, that's the kind of band they were. But that's just what he was in the mood to have at that time. But these are very accomplished musicians that had a reputation in New York, and a lot of people knew about the band. So I love their playing throughout Sometime in New York City, and on their one and only album on Apple, which still has not been reissued. But some great playing all throughout. The thing about Sometime in New York City is, there is that raw quality that you hear in it, like they're live, they're cutting loose in the studio. They may not be the most perfect takes, but they're just right. This is how the band sounds as is. And I love the sound of Sometime in New York City. I love having a contrast from something far more, I don't want to say
slick,
polished, because not everything on Imagine is polished,
right.
But having that rawness on Sometime in New York City, and I'm sure a lot of fans crave that, in an artist like John. It's just fits him so well. I remember Gary telling me the first time that they got together and they were in the studio, they jammed throughout the night doing lots of 50s rock and roll. Man, would I love to hear those tapes.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll bet they were on fire, even just, even though it was the first time getting together. But
absolutely. I agree. Tom, how about you?
It was completely different. It did, I do agree with Ken about that, that garage band feel. after getting, listening to Plastic Ono Band and Imagine, you get used to a certain sound from John, especially working with those musicians, and then going over to Sometime in New York City, completely different feel. And yeah, there's some really standout things. I love the guitar playing from Wayne Gabriel, and I love the sax playing from Stan as well. I mean, those are two standouts for me. I mean, I guess I gotta, I'm not gonna leave out Sayak either, but since his wife is watching. But but when I think of certain, but when I think of certain songs on this album, I mean, the sax is always been a favorite of mine, and I really love what I hear on these songs that feature that. And and Wayne's guitar playing, I think, is really really good on here as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that was one thing when I first heard the album, that while I was confused and everything, I always thought, but this band is great. I mean, that's, as you said, Ken, that looseness, that rawness to it, and it fit the tone of the album perfectly. I mean, it really did. Preciseness and smoothness wasn't the point of this album. I mean, it wasn't, and they fit that perfectly. And I think it was, I think, Jeremy just talked about, one of the tracks, like on We're All Water. I mean, they cook on that. I mean, it's that's absolutely. So I think, I kind of wish John would have done more with them. I think they were a fun band, and I agree. I think they added a lot to this album. Absolutely. All right, so let's get into let's talk a little bit about the lyrics, in terms of, one of the things that the album has been criticized for are the quality of the lyrics. And one of the things that John talked about in interviews is one of the sort of approaches he took, and it's right on the front cover, is a journalistic approach, that he wanted it to be like newspaper headlines. And the lyrics are definitely kind of blunt. I mean, he doesn't beat around the bush. But did the lyrics always, was that an effective approach, do you think? I mean, did you think the lyrics, this kind of approach worked on this record as opposed to some of his other albums? Or did you think it, didn't work as well on this album? I mean, what did you think overall? I mean, just about the quality of the lyrics and, communicating messages. Because for this record, because this is such a political record, that they were pretty important, so Ken's nodding. So why don't we start with Ken?
Well, most of the time, the lyrics worked for me once I came to know what, each song was about. Certainly the opening track, Woman is the N of the World. I think they're very effective in driving home this message of how women are put down in our society, and we don't treat them as equals with men. We make them, pay to face and dance, and all that. The lyrics on Angela, I find to be really touching. In fact, I wrote down some lyrics here. Angela, you're one of the millions of political prisoners in the world. Sister, there's a wind that never dies. Sister, we're breathing together. Sister, our loves and hopes forever keep on moving, oh so slowly in the world. That's very effective to me. That sounds more like Yoko's words to me than John's, but obviously with saying sister all the time. But, there are certain words in there that I think really work for those songs. They really tell a story. I like the lyrics of Attica State very much. And sometimes I think bluntness really works in a song. Rockefeller pulled the trigger. That is what the people feel. That's really just saying it like it is, how some people felt in that situation of what happened. So the only lyrics that really bother me in the song are from The Luck of the Irish.
I was gonna
I was
say,
gonna say.
Let's walk over rainbows like leprechauns and the world would be one big Blarney Stone. No, that doesn't work for me very much.
No.
But for the most part, I like most of the lyrics of the songs. I think they work for every story that he's telling about all these various people and the causes, whether it's feminism, or New York City, which is very autobiographical. It's kind of like, a more modern ballad of John and Yoko,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Definitely.
if you will. But
Yeah.
I like most of the lyrics on the album. I think they work.
Okay. Let's see, Joe, I saw you looking at some
Well,
notes, so it looks like you have some
yeah,
things
but
to
the whole
say.
thing is, I have all the songs written down, and a lot of the places I mentioned the lyrics, so I
Yeah.
gotta like pick them out
Oh,
and
sure.
find out where they are.
That's okay.
No, but yeah, it's hit and miss for me. Mostly hit. I like most of the lyrics. A woman is the N word of the world. I love how he defends women. Yoko really had a strong influence on John with that song. By the way, in general, I think as far as him becoming more appreciative and respectful of women and what they've done for him in his life and the world in general. And I love the lyrics really get it across how they're mistreated. Ken mentioned some of them. I like clever lines like, while telling her not to be so smart, we put her down for being so dumb.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Hey
not
guys,
really
I
good. I
gotta
like that.
excuse myself for 1 second. I'll be
Oh,
right
sure.
back. So, kid,
No
if you want to go
problem.
next, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Was it
No
something I
problem.
said? No kidding. Uh, but yeah, I love all the lyrics in that song. They really like drive it home. Make her paint a face and dance. All the things that people do. Insult her every day on TV. Things
Mhm.
like that. Um, then you have a song like Attica State, for example, which I don't know if we're going to see again. I have things to say positive about the song. Well, I look like the high
We'll get to
energy.
that later, but yes.
Well, it's hard to do it this way. But anyway,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I don't agree with all the sentiment in it. It's a personal thing. I don't believe we should free prisoners and jail judges,
Mhm.
but or that we're all mates with Attica State. I don't really necessarily agree with that. But I like the song, which we'll get to later. I like the
Yep.
energy, the high energy of the song, so I love it anyway. Uh, John once said that he likes Yoko's lyrics because they're so poetic, and a lot of people put Yoko down, obviously, but I support her, and I think she's a good writer. A lot of times, like in Born in a Prison. So some of the
Mm.
lyrics there, like wood becomes a flute when it's loved, and the mirror becomes a razor when it's broken. Things like that. Good lyrics in there from Yoko. And I could go up and down here. Same thing with "We're All Water" if we're sticking with Yoko,
Mhm.
Mhm.
which we'll get to that song, I'm sure, later. I love some of the lyrics in that.
Yep.
About that is may not be much difference between Chairman Mao, Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
You know, it's such and all the different comparisons when you just get down to it. Everybody's the same when you strip them of all their uh, outer layers. We all
Yeah.
wind up being people, and that kind of the whole concept of that I love. Um, in Luck of the Irish, Ken was starting to talk about it. There's some harsh words in there, but it is a harsh and angry song. Even though in the guise of a nice like melodic piece, but I think the mild swearing in there kind of works for that song. Actually, I wouldn't say they're great lyrics, but I kind of think they're effective in that song.
Mm.
Uh, and that's off the top of my head. That's
Mhm.
some of the lyrics. Ones I mostly like, and a couple I mentioned I'm not keen on personally, but that's all subjective. Overall, I think they get to both John and Yoko get to the core of the matter, and they do it with punch.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, getting to the core of the matter is definitely the key on this album. That's for sure. As I said, and that's what he said he wanted to do. I mean, like have these be headlines, and then this blunt style. Absolutely. So, Tom, do you want to go next, or do you?
Yeah, no, I'll go next.
Yeah.
When you listen to it's kind of, when you're younger and you're listening to all these chronological, you know, you listen to Plastic Ono Band and then Imagine, then come to this. It's definitely really different for in my personal experience, just taking all of this stuff in, because obviously you get the the rawness and the hurt that John was going through in the first album, and then progressing to the second, to Imagine, and then coming to this. It was a little bit of a challenge, but starting with songs like John Sinclair, I mean, it's not something that is very powerful, I don't think, or if it's still relevant today, but it's fine. They gave him 10 for 2. I mean, that was okay, but then the got to was kind of annoying a little bit. Not as bad as really hard from Paul, but
thank you. I was trying to think of a comparison. I couldn't come up with one. You did it for me.
Right. But I mean,
I love
fine.
you very
much. Yeah. And Ken, you bring up Luck of the Irish, and the verses I think are silly, but I do tend to like the chorus. If you had the Luck of the Irish, you'd be sorry and wish you were dead. If you had the Luck of the Irish, you wish you was English instead. I mean, I think to that, I mean, yeah, that's the headline right there to me. I mean, that kit you were talking about, that was, fine. New York City, Ken, you mentioned about, kind of being like the sequel to Ballad of John and Yoko. I think that you said, and I definitely, agree with that. I mean, I don't think that these lyrics are like, they're going to get nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize or anything like that. But I mean, I consider more anthem songs, which are more about the chorus than they are really about the verse. I think, get your message said over and over again. Power to the people, power to the people. War is over if you want it. Woman is the end of the world. That, I mean, I do think the choruses, for these songs are more powerful to me than the actual, verses. So, I mean, for that, I mean, that's what I tend to gravitate more when I listen to this album than anything else.
Well,
That's that's an interesting point, because particularly with John Sinclair, I mean, he wrote that, for a rally, and it really shows, because I mean, you can sing along. I mean, it really sticks in your head, and and he wrote it so that everybody could kind of clap along, and and all that. So I mean, that's a good point. That in some cases, poetic lyrics may not have been the point.
Right.
So
then something like that, it actually kind of worked. I mean, I don't know if it's because of that song, but I mean, he was released, a few days after the Ann Arbor, I believe the Ann Arbor concert.
So by the time the album came out,
right, it was already old.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's still a good song.
Right.
And
great guitar playing on it. Doom, doom, doom. I love that.
Yeah.
Slide guitar.
The slide
guitar is great. Yeah.
I like that. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree. The lyrics are kind of hit or miss. I mean, there are some cringeworthy lines that kind of, interfere with the listening experience. I mean, like Angela, I mean, that line, they gave you coffee, they gave you tea, they gave you everything but equality. Oh, wow. I mean,
the jailhouse key.
Yeah, right. I mean, that just really, I mean, there are just some overly simplistic kind of lines that really are cringeworthy. Or yes, Ken, that Luck of the Irish line that you mentioned. I mean, it's very stereotypical kind of images, and I don't know. I mean, it's a case where, as you said, Joe, it's well intentioned. A number they're well intentioned, but there are times where I could go with a little more subtlety than being kind of just hit over the head all the time with with these just blunt, such bluntness. I mean, I don't mind some blunt statements, but all blunt images to me can get a little, it like even Born in a Prison. It just got repetitive for me. Just singing, born in a prison, die in a prison. I'm trying to find I have the lyrics here somewhere. Here we go. We're born in a prison, raised in a prison, sent to a prison called school. We cry in a prison, we love in a prison. Just like, okay, okay.
I have no problem with it.
I get it. I mean, just some of it was a little bit of just too repetitive, for my taste. But Tom, really what you said kind of made me rethink some of this, that maybe it wasn't the point, that some of this is about kind of creating anthems and sing-along. But when I say sing-alongs, I mean it's like as in at rallies.
Right. I mean, because when you really think about it, when you see the title of these songs, those are the words that they're actually really bringing home. I mean, you listen to Yoko sing Sunday, Bloody Sunday. I mean, that's, I think, to me, the most powerful part of their song is her singing that song, that, and then obviously, it's not the title of the song, but when John says, make them paint their face red and dance. I mean, I don't think that can get any more powerful when he sings, the rawness from his voice from that. But but the titles of these songs, I think, are really the point that they're really going after.
Yeah,
I would give the songs a bit more credit. You talk about the choruses, and the Beatles are champions of writing great choruses and great hooks that really stand out. And when I think of some of these songs, I do think of the choruses, but I think some of the verses really tell a story at the same time. No, the lyrics aren't always perfect, and there's a few clunkers in there that we can bring up. But if it's kind of like, I just posted on Facebook on my page for John's birthday, Bring On the Lucy, Free to People. I mean, there's another one where there's the chorus, and it's such a great chorus. Free to people now.
Right.
Do it now.
Yeah.
But I love the lyrics of the verses too, leading into it. It all there's a relationship there between the verses and the chorus, and they do work, in most cases, and they do tell a story of what was going on.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get to highlights. I mean, we've kind of touched on a bit already, but what are some tracks that you think are the standouts for you on this album? So Tom, let's start with you. What are some of your you think are the strongest tracks?
I go to New York City, I think is, for me, probably the best track on this album. I really dig the energy on this one. I tend to like Yoko on this album. Like I said, I tend to like what she did with Sunday Bloody Sunday with that chorus. I like her singing in Sisters, Oh Sisters. I like her singing in Born in a Prison, even though you talked about, Kit, how some of it's repetitive, but there's a lot of songs that are repetitive that are out there. And then We're All Water. I love the name checking in We're All Water, and you get the opposite ends, and then when you boil it all down, we are all the same. I mean, obviously we're going to have all these differences, but you strip us naked, we're kind of
right down to the skeleton.
Right down to the skeleton.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I do tend to like, Woman Is the End of the World. As specifically, I like the music of it. I do like the sax, like I talked about on there. Luck of the Irish, for some reason, silly lyric or not, I just have always dug it. There's just always something about it that I've really appreciated. And Sunday Bloody Sunday too, I think is a quality track on here, instrumental wise and lyrically. So
good choices all. Absolutely. So Ken, how about you? What are some of the highlights for you?
Well, I must say that Woman Is the End of the World is a song that has become one of my favorite of John's solo songs now. Not just because of the message, obviously his vocals are out of sight on that song. I love the sax playing from Stan Bronstein on it, which makes such a big difference in the song. I love the orchestration. I love the way the song ends. It's in suspension. You know, we
Nice,
make our
nice.
pay to face and
Face and
dance. It's
dance,
such
yep.
an unusual ending. You're waiting for
Yeah.
it to end clean or something, and it doesn't, and it keeps repeating. And John's
Yeah.
vocals are so great when he's screaming at the end. We
I
make our
think
pay
it's
to
just
face
as
and dance.
powerful just when he's doing that, screaming that. I think it's just as powerful as when he's screaming, "Mother, don't go, Daddy, come home" at the end of
Mm.
Mother. You know, I look kind of
Yes.
look at him like kind of like brother and sisters. They're at towards the end of those, that rawness of his voice is just wonderful.
Yeah, interesting. I do like Born in a Prison a lot. It has a real jazz feel to it.
Mhm.
Especially with the sax adding so much to it. And it kind of led to me, it's when I listened to Yoko's song Death of Samantha, kind of reminds me a bit of that. She was moving in that kind of a direction, a slow, moody, jazzy piece. And yeah, I love Born in a Prison a lot more now. I love Angela a lot more now. And that was one of the few songs from John I didn't care for. I love the melodies. I love how John and Yoko's voices blend so well on it. And, they're kind of like at the same volume,
Mm.
there isn't one that's dominating the other. Attica State is so edgy. I love it. It's just too short a song for me.
Yeah.
But
252.
yeah, I love the lyrics of it. I love the chorus. Come on, New York City is an all and out great rocker, no doubt about it. And it's very Chuck Berry influenced. Yeah, John Sinclair, we mentioned the slide guitar part. I'm not bothered at all by the got to.
Yeah, me
You know,
either. Me either.
I think that adds a little tension there, and you're waiting for it to end.
To
When is
end.
it going to go into the song?
Right.
A little anticipation there for, when is the song going to continue? Yeah, John Sinclair is so catchy, great hooks throughout the song. Yeah, most of the album I really like, and a lot, and like you were saying, Tom, you got used to hearing Yoko really sing,
Mhm.
as opposed to, people
Yeah,
call
don't
it
worry.
screaming.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
also, call it vocal improvisation
Yeah.
because, some people can
Uh-huh.
look at it that way depending upon your own interpretation.
Right.
She's wailing away with her vocals the way a guitar player would do a solo.
Mhm.
But to hear it on Sunday Bloody Sunday, oh, the Luck of the Irish is very much like Angela in the sense that they are duetting
Right.
on that
Mhm.
song, and it works really well there. Although some of the lyrics I could do without. The chorus is great. There are some really high moments throughout the entire album. But there's one other thing I wanted to say about this album, which is that, like a lot of people, I took this attitude growing up that entertainers should stick to being entertaining and not mix politics with their work. And now I think the complete opposite. I admire artists when they say how they feel about what's going on in the world, regardless of whether or not I agree with their politics, because they're sticking their necks out. And like we said earlier, they could lose part of their fan base, they could lose record sales,
Yeah.
but they care more about what they're singing about and the causes than they care about how commercially successful they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Yep.
and that's just the great thing about studying all this music. There's such a contrast between this and Imagine and Plastic Ono Band, and it's part of what I love about exploring this catalog.
Yep.
Mm.
Very true. Very
Hmm.
true. Good point. Okay, Joe, you were kind of alluding to this earlier about songs you like and everything.
Yeah.
So now's your
Well,
chance.
now I think this is an underrated album. These days, and I enjoy every song on the album except for one, which I can leave for later if you want to talk about any low points
Yeah,
or not,
we'll get to lowlights in a minute. Yeah.
because I don't know if anybody has any. But
Mhm.
"Woman is the End of the World." I mean, boy, everything Ken said. I love that bit you said about the ending. I never thought to put it quite like that, Ken, but suspension and like that. It is really a great end to it. I love the saxophone in there. I love the gritty sound, the production of it. I usually like things a little more clear, discernible, maybe. But there's something about this, the quality of this, slightly gritty, that I kind of love. And I talked about the lyrics before. I like that
It's
John's
like a
actually
very grainy film noir film from the 40s.
a great film noir
Hmm.
film from the 40s and in the 70s.
Yes.
Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, I like the subject matter that John is now coming around and starting to grow a little bit as far as respecting women. We haven't talked about. I don't think anybody's mentioned. Maybe I'm wrong. Sisters Oh Sisters, which
Yeah.
is one of my favorite Yoko songs, hands down. It's
Mhm.
poppy. It's a girl group sound. I always feel like I'm listening to
Yes.
a girl group or something when I hear that. I just love the way she sings on that. I agree with Tom. I think she's great on this album, pretty much in general. It's one of her best performances vocally. Um, Attic Estate, high octane energy. I love the chorus, even though I might not agree 100% with their affection they have for some of some of the people in the song. But hey, I like listening to the song. We talked about that earlier. How does it sound? Do you enjoy the song?
Mhm.
I enjoy the song. Born in a Prison. It's a pretty song arrangement. It's a pretty arrangement. Love the harmonizing when John comes in to sing along uh, with Yoko, and those poetic lyrics that I mentioned earlier that Yoko writes. New York City, probably my favorite song on the album. I think Tom, you said that you like that the best. It's rare that you get a rocker. I think from John, really, and that one is just pretty, putting them to the wall kind of rock and roll. Love the musicianship on it. There's a guitar solo I love, and then after you get done with the guitar solo, digging that later on is piano
Hmm.
solo. I love the piano on there. It's fantastic, and I like the way John actually tries to fit so many words into these some of these lines. He's trying to get them in
He's
there.
singing really
Uh,
quickly, in the
Yeah.
in the
yeah.
Yeah.
verses.
What is it? Laid something down as the news spread around about the plastic. Oh no, hell if it's memory. So it's like it's it just cracks me up. He's trying to get this, get this in. Um, I'll skip over one song for later. Uh, let's see, John Sinclair. I'm not a pot smoker. I'm not a fan. Some people think I could use a little pot smoking, but personally, I'm not really into it. But I can empathize with the getting 10 for 2, and John's cause in that. And I love the slide guitar as we been mentioning earlier. Luck of the Irish. Yeah, I love the two of them, John and Yoko, singing on that. I think it's a really nice sounding song. It's just bizarre how there's some harsh words in there, cussing that I
Mm.
think kind of contrasts it in a way
Yep.
nicely. Angela, another pretty sounding song. Love the melody. Love John and Yoko singing together in unison on it. Yeah, I, I'm I'm 50% behind most of it, what it's about, but it's not 100% necessarily, but it's a beautiful song. Uh, and We're All Water. Come on, tour de force for Yoko.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Completely going crazy with clever lyrics. I think those
Right.
lyrics are clever. And the thing about her with her caterwauling, if you will, whatever you want to call it, it's funny. uh, I don't like listening to that when it's all it is. But when it's used, I don't know, modestly, or in this case, maybe not so much, but it's put in for a purpose at a time,
Yeah.
rather than just doing it throughout the whole thing.
Mhm.
I enjoy it like that. I enjoyed it like in Kiss Kiss Kiss. You see a little of her hear a little of her at the end, going off into sounds and noises and things like that. And I'm moving on. She does a little at the end of that kind of thing. I think her over the top outrageousness delightfully complements We're All Water. I really like that, and that's some of my feelings on the songs.
Very
There's
good.
only one that I don't like.
Wow.
You're
All
just gonna
right.
leave us guessing, huh?
Well,
Oh no, we'll get to that in a second. We'll get
we
to that in a
shall.
second.
I'm the only
Uh,
one who has one.
yeah. Well. Oh no, I've got a
Oh,
few,
all
but
right, King.
but yeah, for me, definitely World Water. I'm in complete agreement with you, Joe. I think that's a tour de force for Yoko. Very clever, funny lyrics. too. I mean, there's some humor in there. But yeah, great. As I've said earlier, great performance from Elephant's Memory, and great vocals from her. John Sinclair, as we talked about earlier, catchy lyrics. Love the slide guitar, and I like John's interplay, vocal interplay with that guitar. New York City, kind of a sequel to Ballad of John and Yoko. If you want to know about this period in their lives, as I kind of introduced it earlier, listen to this song. It's a summary. I mean, that's what it is, and it's a great rocker. As you said, Ken, definitely Chuck Berry influenced. Sisters Oh Sisters, I'm glad you mentioned that, Joe, because it does have a girl group feel to it, and I mean that has to be intentional. I mean, because it has to be, and I love that. I think that's a very clever arrangement. Sunday Bloody Sunday, I think is another favorite too. I like the rock and almost a little funk to it. It's got a little bit of that.
Funky.
Yeah, it's a little funky. The sax solo is just rips. I mean, it's a great solo. And John, yelling, do it. I mean, it does, really hype you up. I mean, which is what these songs are supposed to do. And I like and I'm sorry, somebody mentioned earlier in the comments they didn't like Yoko's part on that, and I have to respectfully disagree. I actually like her vocals on that.
Yeah.
They work in the context of this song. I think it's it's a little bit of it is a contrast. But in this case, for me, it works. So those are the highlights for me, for sure. So now, any I hate to call them lowlights, but I mean any areas where you think, this is where I can see where people didn't like this album. It could be a particular song, or it could be, just elements of the album that you could see why critics attacked it.
Yeah.
So, Tom, what do you think?
I mean, it's not that I hate these songs. It's just like there's some that I think maybe they should have thought twice about doing the song, about the situation. Like, did they know Angela Davis was a communist? Because I wouldn't have sang in her favor if I knew she was a communist. I mean, that's just the way I feel about that situation. Did they know the outcome of, I mean, I know they visited the families of some of the guards, I think, from what happened in Attica State, but I mean, I don't know if they really felt, or if they were 100%, into, everything that happened in that situation. I don't know. I mean, I'm still learning about the these events that happened, all of these years ago. So, I mean, I'm not going to, bash them for sticking their necks out, like we said, to sing about these certain things. But when you learn about, some of these events that happened, I mean, sometimes you might want to question if they were being a little naive about this, or
that's what I said. I recall
what.
early on. That's why I agree with you on that, Tom.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily I hate the songs. It's just more or less maybe some of the subject matter that they're singing about.
It was definitely risky subject matter. That's for sure. Now, Joe, we're wanting to know what is the song.
I wanted to segue from you into possibly into Sunday Bloody Sunday. It's just a completely personal thing. I just think it's the weak point of the album. I think it may be John's worst song, in my opinion, of his solo career. I'm not counting stuff like Cooking in the Kitchen of Love, perhaps, which Ringo sings. He wrote for Ringo, or Forgive Me, My Little Flower Princess, which is it's not really completed.
Right.
Anyway,
Okay.
so yeah, it's my least favorite. I mean, again, I wouldn't skip it. I don't skip it when I listen to this album. I listen to it, and you almost made me like it, Kit, when you were talking about sax in it. You're right. I like sax. We like the horns and these things, sax and everything. And I do like that part. I don't really like the fade out and fade in this case.
The false ending thing.
I like
do.
That.
I really like it.
I love it when that's done.
I mean, I'm not against fade out and fade ins in general. Just this one, I agree. And I wanted to defend Yoko first and say how much I liked her on this album, so I could say I personally that she sounds irritating on this chorus. It's annoying to me.
Mm.
But again, I still listen to it. I just think it's unmelodic, erratic, disjointed. It's kind of like, it's not very melodic to my ears.
It does have a little bit of a chaotic sound to it. I will say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
So,
But then there was a lot
And,
of chaotic events going on back then, I would think.
Yeah,
there
true.
you go.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
So that's
Oh,
it. The only
right.
complaint really on the album.
Yeah. Well, not bad. I mean, that's a pretty pretty small complaint overall. I mean, that's yeah. Ken, how about you? Is there, is you overall were positive about
Yeah,
the album?
I think that this album has really risen in my eyes through the years. Probably my least favorite Lennon album would now be Rock and Roll. And I say that knowing, John loved the 50s rock and roll, and I think most of the arrangements on that album are great, but I will always favor original songs, I think, from the Beatles over the covers. But I think the reason why this album didn't do so well, there's a couple, and I think that it was overtly political. And even though many of his fans didn't mind when he was singing about peace and give peace a chance and those songs, every song here had some kind of political message. And even in New York City, he's mentioning, David Peel and Jerry Rubin and political figures of the time. So, and also, I think a lot of fans kind of felt like, he's jamming Yoko down our throats and, forcing us to accept her. And for a lot of people, that was very difficult. And so many people still to this day won't give her music a chance, even when she does stuff that's even more commercial. And she's not doing the.
Give Yoko a chance. All we are saying is give Yoko a chance.
That's right. Yep.
So I think it's a combination of all that. He picked a single that no way in hell was AM radio going to play at all. What's really ironic? I was just thinking about this in preparation for this show, and I looked this up. But that very same year that John did Woman is the End of the World, within months, Helen Reddy released I Am Woman.
Right.
Which was a #1 song in this country. Both songs have the same message, but both were approached completely differently.
I love that song, I Am Woman. I really like that song.
Would Woman is the End of the World be more powerful if Yoko sang it? Or have more meaning?
Oh, it came from her anyway.
People would have given her a chance, on the radio.
Yeah.
But maybe if John had used a different word.
But he wanted to keep the integrity of the term that Yoko used for that Nova interview.
And I agree. But the timing was perfect for a song like that. It was the height of the women's live movement.
Yep.
You had all the Norman Lear shows. You had Maude on television.
Sure.
And you had I Am Woman as the #1 song. And people were ready to accept that as a message, but I don't think they were ready to accept it this way, the way that John did it.
And the word wasn't as we usually think of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, the congressman, I forgot his name right now. He talked about that. And John talked about that on the Dick Cavett show as well. He talked about the congressman that stuck up for Ron DeLums. Was that how you pronounce his name?
Right.
But you mentioned that Woman's the End probably wasn't the best single. Maybe, they weren't going to play it. I mean, was there another single on here, Ken, in your
I was wondering
ears?
Probably the only thing I could see, as much as I think John Sinclair is really catchy, probably New York City.
New York City.
Yeah, New York City.
Hands down, that was the most accessible. Yeah.
I would have picked that. But I love Woman is the End of the World now, and for all these reasons. And I was just remembering, I'm talking about the ending of that song. I do love unexpected endings. And I've talked about Too Many People from Paul and how that ends. It goes in this instrumental way that you don't expect. I really dig songs that end that way in ways that you don't expect.
Yep.
But otherwise, I personally don't have any complaints about this album. I love it more now than I ever have before because John and Yoko, stuck their necks out and did songs that were important to them at the time, It also took guts to present themselves as a couple. And I also think that, just as we've learned from watching the Imagine sessions, how much Yoko was an influence on what John was doing, I can't imagine John doing most of these songs or any of these songs without Yoko by his side in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
They
I
really
agree.
were a couple.
Yeah. No
It was
question.
such a major influence. It's
Mhm.
one thing to write Revolution or even just the peace songs, but here he's writing about very specific people and events. And I think, when you watch the interviews of John and Yoko at that time, Yoko seems very prepared to talk about all this stuff, and so does John.
Yeah.
And so, they communicated their ideas very well in these shows like Mike Douglas or Dick Cavett.
Dick Cavett.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
it was a big step to not only put out a solo album, and make it political, but to make it an album by a married couple.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Remember the story, Dick Cavett saying that, of course he allowed John to sing that song, "Woman is the End of the World."
But he apologized
on there.
first.
Yeah.
And then he had some kind of a disclaimer or something.
He
at the beginning.
apologized, yeah, something like that at the
Apology.
beginning.
And that's what he said people called in or
Complaining
wrote in
about that,
complaining
right.
about that, not the song.
Yeah.
About
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
having that
Wow.
message.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is interesting.
Wow. So before we get to our overall judgment of or reassessment of the album, I just want to mention a number of people have been commenting about the live disc that came with the album.
Oh
And-
yeah,
and
we didn't mention that.
Yeah, and we decided not to really,
Yeah.
intensively review it because, as you can see, by the time we had enough to work with the studio recordings. But is there any quick things we want to say about the live disc? I mean, I found the the Plastic Ono Band stuff interesting. I mean, that version of Cold Turkey is really intense. I mean,
Yeah.
that is really great
Yeah.
to have.
I like that.
I mean, that is incredible. The
An
Zappa
amazing
stuff,
lineup of musicians. on
and
that.
of course
Yeah.
the lineup. I mean, wow. So I mean, it's great to have that. And the Zappa stuff is kind of interesting. It's not something that I would listen to repeatedly, let's put it that way, but it's interesting to hear them collaborate, but it's just not something that nice to have, but it's not something that I would have on repeat. I don't know about you guys.
Mm.
So is there anything you guys want to
Well,
comment on?
I like "Well, Baby, Please Don't Go."
Right.
Yeah.
I enjoy "Cold Turkey," as you said, Kit. Oh man, I've tried to get through all that stuff a lot of times. I
Yeah.
don't like it. The rest of it. In fact, there was a CD. One of the times it came out in 2005. Where it was
yeah.
Mhm.
it was a single disc, and
Right.
she put I guess Yoko, "Cold Turkey," "Don't Worry Kyoko," and "Well, Baby, Please Don't Go," and that's it from
Yeah.
the live
Yeah.
jam. I mean,
They
it's just
eliminated the
it's
Frank
just not for
Zappa
me.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 What about Ken? You've got the John Lennon collection CD there, right? Does
This is
does that have the double? Is that
That's the double one.
So it's it kept the integrity of the original release.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would pretty much echo your words on this. Cold Turkey kicks butt.
Mhm.
Yes.
And you got to remember, you got Eric Clapton on there, George Harrison, Delaney and Bonnie, Keith Moon, Jim Keltner, so many great people, Klaus
Incredible.
Voormann, great lineup, superstar lineup on that. And I love "Well, Baby, Please Don't Go."
Yeah.
And then later on, you learn how John rehearsed that song a lot during Plastic Ono Band and Imagine. And boy, he sounds so comfortable on that song.
Absolutely.
It's a great live recording of "Well,
Mm.
Baby, Please Don't Go."
Mm.
Yeah. Tom, any
Yeah.
thoughts?
It's for me. It's all about Cold Turkey and "Well, Baby, Please Don't Go."
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
I mean, for me, those are the two standout tracks of that whole second disc.
Yep. Jeremy saying it's okay. You guys can say the last three tracks are what they are.
Thank you.
Okay, okay. All right, so final assessment time. So it's almost 50 years later. So what do we think? Do we think the album has gotten better with time? Do you think it, did it deserve its reputation? Do you think it should be, where do you think it stands in in John's overall catalog? Upper tier, middle tier, lower tier.
Mm.
So I know this is the big question.
Well, I mean, when you look at this body of work as a whole, I mean, unfortunately, if you just include the stuff that was released while he was alive, I mean, unfortunately, something's got to be at the bottom, and I'll be honest with you, this is not an album I go to a lot. I mean, again, just like Plastic Ono Band, there's times where you have to be in a certain mood to listen to these songs. For me, I mean, this is just not the CD that you grab when you go for a 2-hour drive. You know what I mean? This is just not that album, and for me, but again, though, it's not bad. I don't know if it really deserved, all the bashing that it got or the low chart position that it got. There's some quality stuff on here, and I guess, again, there's some stuff on here that's still relevant today. Sister Oh Sisters, and I think, Woman is the End of the World is still relevant today, but unfortunately, again, how much do I relate to these songs? How much do I actually believe in what they're singing on these? Do I believe in what they're singing? I mean, and I think that's what matters to me most. Am I also passionate about what they're singing on here? And for the most part, it's not really. But again, I enjoy them putting their necks out there to do this. I give them all the credit in the world. Bravo to them. But again, it's probably this and rock and roll would probably be, right there towards the bottom, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. Joe, what is your final reassessment?
I understand at the time why people were rubbed the wrong way about it, but now I think, in the context of all of John's albums, this is underrated. It's an underrated album. I think it's actually strong in a lot of ways. As I said, the musicianship, the grittiness of it, the grunginess of it, John's voice, John and Yoko together, the way they work. I think there's a lot of good about it. It's different from most John albums in that regard. But then again, John sadly doesn't have a lot of albums. So when you're going to try to do the ranking thing, like you said, higher, middle, lower, got to put it lower tier. I mean, for me, it would be near the bottom. I mean, I'm not going to put it 1, 2, 3, or 4, in my opinion. I tend to put Milk and Honey last if of his original material. Not rock and roll goes by proxy, goes last because it's covers, But
Yeah.
Of his original material, and again, not his fault because wasn't there to finish the songs, So it would be next to last for me if I was going to write, sometime in New York City and then Milk and Honey. But I think people should give it a chance. Fans, try to look at the positive qualities, of it. Forget, even if you don't like the politics. I mean, I agree with Tom. If I can't relate to what they're singing about, sometimes that gets in the way. But then, as Ken says, listen to it. The overall song, does it affect you? Do you like the energy in it? Do you like the melody in it or whatever? And maybe you like it for that. Forget all the negatives about it.
Okay. Absolutely. Ken, what do you think?
I couldn't put it much better than Joe just did.
Yeah.
And definitely I would like to use the word underrated. But, we have conversations all the time on Beatle podcasts about the Beatles' weakest album.
Right.
And the Beatles' weakest album is still a great album.
It's impossible.
We all wish that, if you think of Beatles for Sale or Let It Be as being their weakest albums, those are still great albums. And like Joe said, unfortunately, we've said this a lot, John's catalog is really thin, unfortunately. Milk and Honey, I would rate kind of towards the bottom as well, only because, John didn't get to finish some of those songs. And I do rate rock and roll kind of at the bottom, along with Milk and Honey. And then above that is Sometime in New York City. It's just that I love the other albums so much more. You
Right.
know, Mind Games, Walls and Bridges, top 2, and Imagine and Plastic Ono Band to follow. But I would definitely advise everyone that hasn't listened to this album to give it a chance. And you know, sometimes we bring up this phrase of aging well, or whether or not something sounds dated. And I know I've said this before, but when music sounds dated or the subject matter is dated, it has no effect on me whatsoever. You know, it all comes down to whether I still like the songs. Will I sing along with them? There's so many times that I've sang about songs from people of the past. Like I always loved when Bob Dylan wrote about Hurricane Carter. You know, that's a figure of the past. It doesn't change now whether or not he's alive anymore or not, you know, or what the subject matter was of that song, whether it's still, you know, going on today. I still love the song. You know, I love Ball of Confusion from the Temptations, which in many ways, if you think about the lyrics, is very relevant. But they're even singing about, you know, the Beatles' new records of Gas. You know, it's an old song, but I still love it. You know, it doesn't really matter to me whether or not, you know, these people are figures that we talk about today. I still enjoy these songs. John Sinclair, I get a big jolt out of hearing John Sinclair as a song.
Yeah.
And it's so vibrant. And like I said, I love the production. I love the rawness. I love the intensity. I love the different feel and atmosphere of this album being so different from the other Lennon albums in that regard. So, yeah, very underrated is this album. And I strongly advise. And for new fans to go into this, they don't necessarily have to know the stories of Angela Davis and John Sinclair and know about Attica State. They can just listen as songs with lyrics, and do they like the melody and what's being said, and then they can investigate if they want to.
Absolutely.
What the song's
Yeah.
all about.
Right.
Sure.
But
Agreed.
yeah,
It will be interesting to
those are my thoughts.
see. Yeah, it will be interesting to see or listen to this once it gets its remix, hopefully next year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. I'll be glad to get a remix.
And there's a
of this.
lot of rehearsal stuff. I know that for the
Mm.
Willowbrook shows on it. I wonder what's going to come out. Hopefully, the Live in New York City updated
All right.
version.
Yeah.
There's so much you can do there
Right.
Yeah,
with the
absolutely.
one-to-one concerts.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to include both
Yeah.
rehearsals.
And again, you had
Oh.
talked to, who did you talk to that says that the one-to-one has been done for
Jack
a while
Douglas,
now?
right?
Isn't it Jack Douglas?
Jack Douglas.
Yeah.
Well, there were problems with the video.
Okay.
I don't know. He didn't go into detail about it. And this is a few
Okay.
years ago.
Right.
He told me
Right.
this. But you know that it was answered on social media. Will there be a Lennon
Right.
release next year?
Yeah.
And, you know, we're not sure if it was Sean that answered, but Sometime in
It's
New York City was included in that post.
Mm.
So if they're doing it all chronologically now, even though they started with Imagine,
Mm.
you know, it makes sense that next year, the 50th anniversary of this. And I wonder if they might even include, well, you got to get the rights for it, but the TV appearances
Yeah.
of some
Oh,
of these
yeah.
songs would be
Yeah.
nice.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Do they add the live stuff from the Apollo Theater? I mean, do they add the appearance from the Ann Arbor show? You know, so yeah, there's a lot out there that they can add to this box set. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that stuff has come out on audio.
Oh, on audio,
You know,
yeah,
so already,
exactly.
so,
but you know, yeah.
You can add that to
But there's
the
a
box set,
generation
too.
of people that weren't. I mean, that's out of print now, pretty much. I mean, there's a generation of fans that, you know, that set you'd have to go on eBay and spend more money than you probably want to get that. If this
Yeah.
comes out next year, hopefully all that stuff is on there and it's more accessible to them.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And when it's put together in this context, all grouped together,
Mhm.
you know, it works so well on that level.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and yeah, as for me, I would have to say, for me, this is still in the lower tier, along with this, as you guys have said, probably rock and roll. It for me is you know, in his catalog. But this wasn't really a great opportunity to revisit this album because you know, parts of it were I think better than I remembered. You know, the lyrics, a lot of the lyrics are still pretty cringeworthy for me, but the you know, Elephant's Memory really, you know, sounds even better than I remembered. John's voice on this was, on many of these songs, was, you know, incredibly powerful. And as, you know, we've mentioned many times tonight, Yoko really shines on this album. And as, you know, I listened to it, I thought, wow, I'd forgotten, you know, how really good she was on this. So, but yeah, I agree. I think this is really worth listening to, and a number of commenters tonight have, you know, some have said they still really don't like this album, and so it's interesting. You know, it still evokes a lot of
Sure.
different feelings. Now,
But
some
you know
people-
what? They'll still, if it comes out next year, they'll still buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder.
And,
I wonder.
Yep.
I hope. Some
yeah,
people
maybe.
will.
I mean, you know, because that's the thing. I was in that group too. That really didn't like this album, but it's interesting when you go back and listen to it. I'm not saying you're going to say, "Oh my gosh, it's your favorite album now,"
Right.
but you might think about it a little differently when you listen to it again. It's a very, very interesting experience. So so maybe, you know, after you listen to the show, go get your copy or go on Spotify or however you listen to your music. Take another listen to Sometime in New York City and see what you think. Let us know in the comments here. Let us know in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. We're very interested to hear what you think, and we do read all your comments. So because we really appreciate your feedback and want to know your take on Sometime in New York City and any of the topics that we discuss. So this has been, I knew this would be a fascinating discussion, and it didn't disappoint. So so this has been great. All right, well, I guess we will share what is coming up for us. I'll just quickly mention, because I don't have you know, too long a thing to discuss. I was recently on the show Tomorrow Never Knows, which is hosted by Bob Wilson and Warren Brown, friends of our show, and we discussed Let It Be. What a surprise! And but what was a surprise was there was a surprise guest on there for me, Ivor Davis, which was really a treat to be back on there with him. He's such a great guy. So that is up on Warren's channel, Beatles Kingdom. So do check that out. We had a great time. We had a lot of laughs and everything too, discussing Let It Be. I know that doesn't sound like something you'd laugh about, but we really did. So anyway, so go check that out. Of course, as for how to reach us, you can reach us on our Facebook page where you're watching this right now. You can find us on Twitter at talkmoretalk1. That's number 1. You can find us on our website, talkmoretalk.com. You can find us on our YouTube channel, and please subscribe. Our subscribers are growing and growing, and we really appreciate your support. And you can email us at talkmoresolotalk@gmail.com. So I think that's everything there. Joe, how about you? What are you up to?
Well, if you folks feel like, if you want, you can subscribe to my
There's
Mean
no
Mr. Mayo
please.
channel on YouTube. I'm not going to go please anymore. It's a private joke. It's an in-joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mean Mr. Mayo on YouTube. I just did 2 pretty discussion-worthy videos, a little controversial, talking about Paul McCartney with his upcoming BBC interview. Even though it's not out yet, The Guardian went ahead and quoted a couple of Paul quotes. So check those 2 videos out. Also, hopefully this week, I'll be doing videos on the Let It Be book. Hopefully I get my hands on that, and also Let It Be box set. You know, CD version and /or. Well, probably both, I'm hoping. The vinyl and the CD box. So that's what's new on Mean Mr. Mayo.
Right. Always busy at me, Mr. Mayo. Absolutely. So Tom, how about you? You're always
Yeah,
always have stuff going.
we're keeping busy over at Two Legs, our YouTube channel, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast. Please go over there and check that out if you like,
Please.
Please.
and subscribe if you want. But yeah, like Joe, yesterday we also we went live, Andy and I, and the Queen made a special appearance, and we talked about the some of the comments that were made in that Guardian article, and talked a little bit about some of the history of maybe these comments and why were they made, and we had a lot of fun doing that chat. We also, our last episode was just put up this last Saturday, and we're kind of, it's not necessarily like another listen, but it's kind of like almost like a defending type video where our guest Ed Crawford, he came on, and him and Andy, they like defended the Broad Street film, and we had a good time talking about that. And Ed Crawford, who's a fan of this show and all of our shows really, and he had so much Broad Street memorabilia. It's amazing. The video game, a Broad Street coat, the script. I mean, it's just on and on with the stuff that he has regarding Broad Street. Was a lot of fun to see. That video game, I hear it's terrible, but I mean, I would just love an opportunity to play it once. But then last week, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, last week we just started episode 1 of a 5-part series. It's the 101 favorite McCartney songs, where Andy and I we count down from 100 to 1. Last week was 101 to 81, and we talked about those songs. Next week it'll be 80 to 61. Or I'm sorry, this week, actually, this Wednesday, we'll be talking about 80 to 61, and we're having a lot of fun. I've been really surprised and just so honored with so many people that have been contributing their lists to this. I'm really surprised.
Well, that's fun.
It's great seeing the songs that people love and put in their top 101 songs. It's been really
Tom,
amazing.
you better not have Karina Crowley in the top five.
Why not?
Listen, as much as I love that song, it didn't make the 101. Okay, so but I love that. I do love that song. But yeah, Andy and I are having a lot of fun with that, and we've got a lot more wonderful, great good shows according to us. We think they're good shows coming up, and so check us out. That's Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast on YouTube, and then all over the audio podcasting formats. So thank you, everybody.
Fantastic.
They're all solo Paul McCartney songs.
Solo Paul McCartney.
Okay.
He had to either sang on it or wrote it. There's some specific measures that we have in there, but for the most part, as long as he's singing the song, it's fair game. And it had to be officially released. So like, unfortunately, Yvonne, Paul's version of Yvonne or Cage can't be admitted can't be included because they weren't officially released songs.
Yeah, I talked to Andy about this. What about something like On the Wings of a Nightingale?
Well, even though you wrote it, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if he's on there, I don't really hear him on there. I mean, I have to go back.
He's listed as a guitar player.
He's a guitar player, but if he really needed to be more of a lead vocalist on the track. See, okay. But now here's the thing. Now we did include his version of 4th of July because it's officially released.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Let's
that was
Love.
A good demo.
Oh,
too.
It's a wonderful demo. Wonderful demo.
Yeah.
All right, Ken, what are you up to?
Not nearly as much as Tom, but
well, not at the moment,
website,
maybe.
On my website, kenmichaelsradio.com, I have my weekly Beatles trivia, and this week I'm playing Do the Math. And that's when I ask 2 trivia questions that have a number as an answer. You have to add the 2 numbers together, and you could win one of 10 great prizes. Incredible array of prizes, from CDs to DVDs, you name it, and books. So again, that's at kenmichaelsradio.com. Things we said today, we had to take a break. We couldn't coordinate our schedules, but we are going to do a show on the Let It Be box set very soon, as well as the EP of Change the World. And then there's my YouTube channel, and there'll be some new interviews coming this week. And
fantastic.
Please me and subscribe to my channel. Sorry, it's a group song, but you know,
Right.
it's the only one I could think of at this time.
Very good.
Well, we know we love you, Ken, so please subscribe to Ken's channel.
Ken Michaels
Absolutely.
Radio.
Yes.
There you go.
And now
Oh.
back to Charlie Chen.
Oh God, ding. There's another one.
Honeymooners.
All right. Well, and I forgot to mention, talking about our show, we can also be found everywhere you like listening to your podcasts. So, or pretty much anywhere you can think of, I think. So, all right. Thank you all for joining us tonight. As always, we couldn't do this show without you. Next time, we are going to be reviewing the Let It Be box set.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I know. Can
Why
you
is it
believe
coming out?
Yeah. Have you heard?
You got to pre-order, Ken. Come on.
Yep.
Boy, I wonder who's going to moderate that. That's a big.
Yeah,
big
exactly. Yep.
Oh.
So for Ken, Joe, and Tom, this is Kit saying, remember, sisters, oh sisters, and brothers, we're all water.
There you go.
See you next time.
Yeah.
Someday we'll evaporate together.